A 19-year-old boy by the name of Nicholas Cruz went on a killing spree at a school in Parkland, Florida, killing 17 children. I'm actually looking at the news today. I'm looking at this article today about the killing spree that happened in Parkland, Florida. So if you see me looking off, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I am actually reading this article about this 19-year-old boy who is associated with what they're claiming is a Florida-based white supremacist group. Of course, we have to keep in mind that whenever we have these things happen, the media always comes out and tries to blame white supremacists, Republicans, whatever. So I'm not taking what they're saying very seriously since this is off of Microsoft News. We tend to find out later on, after all of the evidence starts coming out, we tend to find out the complete opposite, that they are completely opposite. I mean, if we're looking at Nicholas Cruz as who's a white supremacist, we know that Nicholas Cruz is not a white person's name. However, we're finding out that this student was actually a student at this school. So that could kind of make a little bit of sense. Now, there is a white supremacist group that said that this Cruz person had gone through some of their training, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. My story isn't really about Cruz. It's not about him. It's not about the killer and the craziness of these people who are doing such insane, horrifying things. What I really want to talk about is recently we heard a story about a homeschooling family in California keeping their kids hostage, so to speak, for months, but we know that they were bringing them out in the public every once in a while, that they were starving them as well, chaining them to their bed, and they were a homeschooling family. And throughout the past month, there have been a lot of conversations about homeschooling versus your child going to a public school so the government can keep track of you and your child and making sure that you are being the parent that the government thinks you should be. Now, I just want to explain, I have voiced my opinions on this topic about the homeschooling situation and that family and how it doesn't really relate to homeschooling. And while many people want to say that it does, and that the government now needs to make more regulations on homeschooling, and that there should be laws where child protective services as well as the school system can just come in at any time into a homeschooling family, they are looking to make this a law, not just in California, but they're asking a lot of state lawmakers to make this part of the homeschooling law. Now, what's irritating to me about this as a homeschooling mom is that doesn't make a homeschooler. We talk about homeschooling and how it needs all these regulations because we need to keep track of the children better. However, we can look at this situation in Florida, that this child, that this school is under the protection of the government, of the school system. They probably have everything that you can think of for safety and protection for the children at this school, but yet 17 children were massacred yesterday by a 19-year-old boy. How does that make you justify that we should be sending our kids to a government-run school that claims that they have the authority on safety for our children? How do we feel safe sending our children to school where you say it's safe, where they're protected, where they're watched over, where you know in school that they can be taken care of, they're fed, they'll be safe there, they won't be harmed, but yet 17 children were murdered in a school, in a public school, by a former student, by a 19-year-old child. And yet, you want to focus on homeschooling. You want to come into our homes and make sure that we're doing everything that you think we should be doing. You think you know what we should be doing, how we should be raising our children, yet you can't protect our children in the public school system. If you could, then these things would not be happening. You can have all the anti-gun laws you want. You can have all the no gun zone rules in your schools and no drug zones in the school. But the problem is that somebody apparently got through your no gun zone at the school and zipped out 17 children. Don't tell me that your drug-free zone at the public schools aren't happening either. Because we know that most of the children who get hooked on drugs are coming from the public school system. Don't tell me or lecture me on how I should raise my child. Don't tell me that you're going to bring Child Protective Services into my home and tell me how to raise my child when you can't even take care of the children that you're supposed to be protecting. What kind of laws do you want to enforce on homeschoolers that aren't already there? That family in California does not represent homeschoolers. And we can say the same thing about this school in Florida. We can say that not every school in Florida or not every school in the United States is going to end up being shot up by some crazy lunatic. We can't say that. But we can start to see a cycle here. The cases of homeschool abuse is 1 in a million, where we are starting to see a trend in these shooters shooting up schools. So where are our children more safe? At home or with you? Under your protection where you can't even protect them, or under our own protection where we know how to protect our own children? That's what we do. That's why we are parents. I am not one of those parents who feels like I need to send my child off to be babysat by the government or to be taught and brainwashed by the government in the school system. I am one of those parents who is responsible for my child because I carried that child with me for 9 months and gave birth to him. I also made a commitment to my husband and to myself that I would be a part of a family and that I would be responsible for my family. And that means raising my family. That doesn't mean sending them off at a certain age and making sure that someone else takes care of all the hard work. You women who sit out there and you claim that you have to have a career and you want it all, well then don't have children. I'm just telling you, you can't have it all. If you think that going out and having a career is the best thing for you, then you better rethink everything else in life. You have to rethink family. Because family always comes first. Your first priority is the child that you gave birth to, that is a part of your family and is your responsibility. Your responsibility. It is not the government's responsibility. It is not the school system's responsibility. It's not the teacher's responsibility. It's yours. It is up to you to teach your children right from wrong, tolerance. It is also your responsibility to teach your children all the basics of life. How to be a good person. How to build the character of your child should not be influenced by the government, by the school system, or by some teacher who may or may not like them. Not only that, we keep talking about anti-bullying, but yet we keep hearing more and more and more stories of so many children who are being bullied at school. And yet you keep talking to us as if we should be sending our children there so our children can be bullied. That's what you want for our children. You want our children to be subjected to teachers who disrespect their values and beliefs, to a school system who doesn't allow them to speak freely about their faith if they have any, And you want us to send our children to a school so that they can be bullied by other kids. And you want us to send our children to a school where you claim it's safe, but yet anybody can walk in with a rifle and start shooting the place up. But they're unsafe in their own home. That family in California, they were nuts. And guess what? There's a lot of nutty parents that have their children going to the public school system as well. Probably more so than the homeschooling community. But you tend to overlook all of that. You don't care about the facts or statistics. What you want is you want absolute control over our children. You want to be the parent of our child. You want to be the one who tells our children what to think and what to do and how to do it. You want Johnny to be like Joe. You want Joe to be like Stacy. You want Stacy to be Fred. Excuse me if I don't want my child to be learning all the crazy mental things that you are forcing our children to endure in the school system. You are forcing them to watch CNN News, which is a biased liberal news program. You are allowing girls to share locker rooms with boys and boys to say, hey, you know what? I feel like being a girl today, so I'm going to go in the girls' locker room and check it out. That's what you want our children to do? That's what you want us parents to give up our rights to say, no, we're not going to have that. We're not going down that route. We are not going to put our child's mentality and mental well-being in the hands of crazy lunatics like the school system and the government-run brainwashing machine called the public schools.